Hello everyone. I welcome all the learners to YuktMind's unique initiative 10 minutes and newspaper done. The beauty of our initiative is that we provide better content in approximate 10 minutes that other educators provide in almost 45 minutes to 1 hour. So genuine aspirants will understand the value of no nonsense class. This is 13 July, the Hindu discussion, and we have selected 7 UPSC relevant articles. Let's have a glance at the headings, that is UNHRC vote, NABARD, quiet diplomacy, partial app bans, weakening autonomy, CPI basket and its updation, and EU Parliament backs biodiversity bill. We will quickly cover these topics in just 10 minutes, and you can download the PDF from our Telegram channel and website's Daily Current Affairs tab. First news, India voted in favor of a draft resolution tabled in the UN Human Rights Council that condemns and strongly rejects recent public and premeditated acts of desecration of the Koran. The Geneva-based 47-member UN Human Rights Council adopted the draft resolution countering religious hatred constituting incitement to discrimination, hostility or violence, with 28 members voting in favor, 7 abstentions and 12 nations voting against. Now this news comes under the topic of important international institutions, agencies, their structure and mandate under GS paper 2. Now let's talk about UNHRC. The Human Rights Council is an intergovernmental body within the United Nations system responsible for strengthening the promotion and protection of human rights around the world. The Council investigates allegations of breaches of human rights in United Nations member states and addresses thematic human rights issues like freedom of association and assembly, freedom of expression, freedom of belief and religion, women's rights, LGBT rights, and the rights of racial and ethnic minorities. So, when was the Human Rights Council formed? The Human Rights Council was created by the United Nations General Assembly in 2006. It replaced the former United Nations Commissions on Human Rights. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights serves as the Secretariat of the Human Rights Council. The Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights is headquartered in Geneva, Switzerland. The United Nations Human Rights Council is made up of 47 United Nations member states which are elected by the UN General Assembly. The UN General Assembly takes into account the candidate states' contribution to the promotion and protection of human rights as well as their voluntary pledges and commitments in this regard. The Council's membership is based on equitable geographical distribution. Seats are distributed as follows: African states get 13, Asia Pacific states get 13, Latin American and Caribbean states get 8, Western European and other states get 7, and Eastern European states get 6. Members of the Council serve for a period of 3 years and not eligible for immediate re-election after serving 2 consecutive terms. Now, the procedures and mechanism of United Nations Human Rights Council, like Universal Periodic Review, Advisory Committee, UN Special Procedures, is covered in detail in the PDF provided in our Telegram channel. Second news, NABARD is the spine of rural India, says Home Minister and Minister of Cooperation Amit Shah. He also said that NABARD has refinanced 20 lakh crore rupees in the rural economy with a growth rate of 14% in the last 42 years. Now this news comes under the topic of regulatory bodies under GS paper 2. Now let's talk few things about NABARD. NABARD is an apex regulatory body for regulation of regional rural banks and cooperative banks in India. It is a development bank focusing primarily on the rural sector of the country. It is the apex banking institution to provide finance for agriculture and rural development. Its headquarters is located in Mumbai. It is under the jurisdiction of Ministry of Finance, Government of India. It provides refinance support for building rural infrastructure. It prepares district level credit plans to guide and motivate the banking industry in achieving these targets. It is responsible for the development of the small industries, cottage industries, and any other such village or rural projects. It is statutory body established in 1982 under the Parliamentary Act National Bank for Agricultural and Rural Development Act 1981. It also helps to integrate the regional rural banks and cooperative banks into the core banking solution platform. Third news, quiet diplomacy could ease South China Sea tensions. The foreign ministers of India and the Philippines met at the 5th meeting of the Philippines-India Joint Commission on Bilateral Cooperation. Now, this news comes under the topic of bilateral regional groupings and agreements involving India or affecting India's interests. India-Philippines relations. Some examples of the evolving strength of this nautical partnership between India and Philippines are the decision to open the Resident Defense Attaché office in Manila, boosting cooperation between the coast guards of the two countries, acquisition of naval assets by Manila under a concessional line of credit from Delhi, expansion of training and joint exercises on maritime security and disaster responses, and commencing a maritime dialogue. However, the most notable development was the agreement on regional and multilateral issues, particularly on maritime highways such as the South China Sea. When India reiterated its consistent position on adhering to international law, including the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, its unambiguous call to respect the 2016 arbitral award on the South China Sea is a departure from India's earlier position. The Philippines had submitted in a case of arbitration to the Permanent Court of Arbitration in order to settle disputes with China. The PCA denied China's assertion that it had historical rights in the South China Sea, and the unanimous decision was in the Philippines' favor. The South China Sea is a crucial maritime gateway and junction for shipping between the Pacific and Indian Oceans. As free and stable marine commons are crucial to global trade and economy, India and many other nations have an interest in safeguarding the water lanes that pass through the region. Despite the fact that the Permanent Court of Arbitration declared its decision, the reality on the ground has not altered, making it practically impossible to carry out the decision. Leaders of ASEAN should try to find a political solution through quiet diplomacy, as the potential for resolving these issues through legal methods are very low. Fourth news is about partial app bans. Last week, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, TRAI, sought inputs on whether it would be possible to have selective app bans instead of internet shutdowns in order to reduce the impact that a wholesale communication lockdown can entail. Now, this news comes under the topic of government policies and interventions for development in various sectors and issues arising out of their design and implementation. Now, how would the TRAI move work? The approach suggested by TRAI would require telecom operators and messaging app firms like WhatsApp to cooperate with each other and stop access to services during a shutdown. So, has the TRAI considered app regulation before? Yes, it has. In 2015 and 18, the TRAI had held consultation on regulating messaging apps, a process that led to wide-ranging protections for net neutrality, the concept that all internet traffic should be treated equally. So, regulating messaging apps has become more a matter of security and policing. Seeking a deterrent against communal misinformation and provocative content spreading online, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology added a requirement of traceability to the IT Rules 2021, wherein one can find the original sender of a forwarded message. However, civil society groups and tech firms said that such requirements were impossible without breaking end-to-end encryption that WhatsApp-like apps provide. So, what about VPNs? Though it is possible to block websites and certain apps by ordering telecom operators to do so, but virtual private networks (VPNs) make these blocks easy to bypass. So, what is VPNs? Virtual private networks tunnels a user's internet traffic through another server. The government has been showing a growing distrust of VPNs. This is because VPNs are often encrypted, leaving the government with little visibility into what goes in users' connections. VPN firms usually route data through servers located in another country and frequently cycle the IP addresses these servers use to evade detection and blocking. These services are used by both privacy conscious users and terrorists and cybercriminals. When the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, CERTIN, published directions in 2022 requiring VPN firms to retain records of users from India, most large VPN providers stopped offering servers physically located in India. However, these firms continued serving users in India. So, can VPNs be blocked? Blocking VPNs is not so straightforward, as companies operating them tend to frequently change the IP addresses associated with their servers. While VPN services websites may be blocked, the installation files can be found elsewhere online. However, internet rights activists say that blocking VPNs would be damaging move for online privacy. VPNs help secure digital rights under the Constitution of India, especially for journalists, whistleblowers, and activists, the Internet Freedom Foundation wrote in 2021. Fifth news is about weakening autonomy of ED and CBI. And this news comes under the topic of statutory bodies under GS paper 2. According to experts, the Supreme Court's verdict upholding statutory amendments made in 2021 to allow multiple extensions of service to heads of investigative agencies like CBI and ED is a setback to the cause of protecting their institutional independence. But the court has now ruled that even though Parliament can remove the basis for any judgment through legislation, it cannot nullify a court direction. The heads of the CBI and ED have an assured term of 2 years, regardless of superannuation, and the introduction of a power to extend it to 5 years means an officer may get up to 3 annual extensions. As the petitioners who challenged the extension argued, piecemeal extensions undermine the independence of the office and encourage a carrot and stick policy to make directors toe the government's line. Sixth news, CPI basket concealing the inflation picture. Now, this news comes under the topic of Indian economy and issues relating to planning under GS paper 3. In the current process of tracking the consumer price index and subsequently calculating inflation, we continue to monitor a basket of goods that were used in past and no longer holds relevance, like torches, radios, tape recorders, CDs, DVDs, cassettes, trunks, etc. So we need to focus on an evolving basket. The CPI basket should not be viewed as an unchangeable artifact frozen in time. On the contrary, the real consumption basket of common Indian is fluid and continually evolves, mirroring the shifts in society needs, preferences, and economic conditions. Technological advancements introduce new products and services. In the current CPI, whose base year is 2012, weights of various groups are as follows. Food and beverages first, that is 45.86%. Second is housing, about 10%. Third is fuel and light, 6.84%. Fourth is clothing and footwear, about 6.53%. And last is pan, tobacco and intoxicants, 2.38%. This excludes the miscellaneous, 28%. As the Indian economy has grown, the weightage of food in the CPI basket has decreased from 60% in 1960 to 57 in 1982 and today 45.86 as per 2012 base year. This is common trend known as Engel's law, which suggests that as income rises, the proportion of income spent on food falls, even if the absolute expenditure on food rises. These shifts imply that as people's income rises and standard of living improves, they tend to allocate a larger proportion of their spending towards non-food items such as housing, education, personal care, entertainment, etc. Further, the startlingly high weight of 9.67 assigned to cereals in the current CPI is undoubtedly excessive because as the economic advancement happens, there is a broader range of nutrient-rich options beyond cereals. So we need to reduce the relative expenditure on cereals of food group in CPI basket. So why are we not able to update the CPI basket? Another reason is consumption expenditure data. The challenge lies in effectively reflecting these changes in our inflation metrics without access to up-to-date consumption expenditure data. Weights for CPI can only undergo a significant shift after we have this data from household consumption expenditure survey data. The absence of household consumption expenditure survey has spawned a slew of issues. We are unable to determine the population under the poverty line accurately, and our ability to track inflation effectively has been severely undermined. Our tools for understanding and managing our economic reality are grossly inadequate. So there was a question on CPI and WPI in UPSC past year question paper of 2020. First statement was the weightage of food in CPI is higher than in WPI, correct? The WPI does not capture changes in the price of services which CPI does. Yes, that is correct. The Reserve Bank of India has now adopted WPI as its key measure of inflation. It is wrong. CPI is the key measure of inflation in RBI's data. So the correct answer is A, that is 1 and 2 statement. Seventh news, despite conservative backlash, EU Parliament backs biodiversity bill. The European Parliament narrowly backed a key biodiversity bill aimed at rewilding EU land and water habitats, overcoming a backlash by conservative lawmakers who said it would hurt farmers. Thank you for watching. Let us know your feedback in the comments and keep visiting our website, Telegram, Instagram, and Twitter.